How's it going, everyone? It's Javi here from Weather Strorm Shot 5000. Today is July 7th, 2018. July 8th, 2018. As today we're going to look at Tropical Storm Berlin, which is basically moving westward towards the Lesser Antilles, and it has weakened substantially since I last updated you guys yesterday, which was a hurricane. Yesterday it was 80 miles per hour, and now obviously it basically weakened to almost nothing. It's just barely remaining at tropical storm strength. Currently the winds are at 45 miles per hour with the pressure down to 1005 millibars, which has risen since the last update, and it's moving west northwest at 16 kts per second. So it's moving pretty fast, and there's really not much future for this storm, because based off of yesterday's satellite, and if you compare it to today, we obviously see that this storm is basically struggling to really find convections and to really have a organized area of thunderstorms. We saw that, and we saw also yesterday that the western portion of the storm was getting most of the organized thunderstorms. You could obviously see it's the opposite today, but instead of the thunderstorms being organized, they're very disorganized towards the eastern side of the storm, and the western side has basically just eroded away by all the dry and sinking air that was just towards the west of it, which was inevitably gonna happen. But the computer models were just struggling whether when this storm was exactly going to weaken, because there were some computer models stating that it would start to weaken by the time it reached Puerto Rico, while some were saying it would weaken earlier than that. But it seemed like it weakened a lot earlier than most computer models expected that were near the Puerto Rican, that were expecting it to weaken near the Puerto Rico area. And I kind of predicted this, because yesterday I was saying how this storm could go either way. This could rapidly intensify to a Cat 2, maybe even Cat 3 strength, because it was so small and it had little air to absorb surrounding the storm. Since it was so small, so it was less likely to absorb any dry air or any wind shear that was near it. So it could have easily strengthened a lot more, or it could have died easily, and that seemed to be the case for this scenario, where there was just too much dry air, where it basically just swallowed up this tiny hurricane, and now it's just barely staying alive. And I'm gonna show you the track right now. You could see that there's not really much future with this storm. It's basically gonna remain at tropical storm force strength. Most of the computer models are expecting. Some are expecting it to die out earlier than that. It might not even be known as a tropical depression by the time it reaches the lesser Antilles, and it is entirely possible that's the case. But however, there are still some computer models taking it with a more steady intensity and taking it towards the Lesser Antilles. We still have tropical storm warnings issued for some areas of the Lesser Antilles, and some tropical storm watches just north and south of that. But I don't expect the impacts to be major. Winds should maybe gust to 40-50 miles per hour, and especially on the northern side, where the trade winds will basically keep the northern side of this storm alive with winds, and it should bring some minor rip currents and maybe beach erosion to these the Lesser Antilles, and maybe some enhanced rain showers as well in the Lesser Antilles and in the rest of the Caribbean islands. So there's really not much future with this storm. It's expected to weaken due to how much dry air is basically swallowing up this storm in the future. You could see that to be honest, I think this thing's gonna die by the time it's tomorrow or later today, since it's very early today I'm recording this. But I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I'd be surprised if this reaches tropical storm force strength by the time it reaches the Lesser Antilles, because right now it looks like there's just nothing going for this tropical storm. But anyways, let's move on to something that's closer to home, that has a more likely chance of bringing bigger impacts, which is Tropical Depression 3. So from when I last updated you guys, it was similar to how Berlin looks right now. There wasn't much thunderstorm, there wasn't much convection evidence that was going on with the storm. It seemed like it was also dealing with a lot of dry air on the northern side of the storm by a ridge, the Bermuda Ridge, bringing a lot of that dry air. But now it seems like it's starting to explode more with thunderstorms, and the main reason of that is we have that approaching cold front, like I mentioned in the last video, that's basically moistening up the atmosphere and making conditions more conducive for rising air and rising water vapor. Because yesterday it had to deal with a lot of dry air, but I think that approaching cold front, which has a lot of humidity and just moisture right in front of the cold front, is now making the conditions more conducive for convection for Tropical Depression 3, as I'm gonna pull up the water vapor imagery to show you that cold front bringing more humid air in the mid levels of the atmosphere, and it's just making conditions more conducive for rising air and water vapor. So this thing doesn't seem to be loading for me, but okay, now, and then you can see now we're starting to see slightly more convection right around where I'm pointing my mouse. You could see those spinning clouds in a way surrounding this tropical depression, and you could see that this cold front right here is bringing, I think, more conducive, more humid air masses to this storm, because yesterday there was a lot of dry air just to the northeast of this storm, but now it seemed like that cold front is moistening up the atmosphere and creating some slight instability for this storm to work with. And this storm is expected to strengthen over the next couple of days, mostly because it's basically going to be trapped between two high pressure ridges. That's which is one that's going to be centered right around the Midwest, and then the Bermuda High that's always been there, and it's just basically going to be trapped for the next 1 to 2 days before we see an approaching trough, which computer models and other forecasters were questioning whether that trough will come and whether it will steer out to sea. But as of right now, it's looking pretty certain that this storm will likely move out to sea with this approaching trough from the Midwest to the Northeast, which should come right around Tuesday, Wednesday, around the midweek, and it should steer Tropical Depression 3 right out to sea, not really directly affecting land. However, it's expected to strengthen due to a variety of reasons. I'm going to pull up the track right now of this storm, and the reason why it's expected to strengthen is because it's basically going to be trapped between two ridges of high pressure, which basically blocks out any type of wind shear or any type of dry air that's trying to filter in, which is usually associated with one of these troughs. And those high pressure ridges should basically provide good outflow for this storm for it to strengthen. Also, the water temperatures right around the area is about 3 to 5 degrees above average for this time of the year, so it's really making conditions conducive for development for Tropical Depression 3. And it's expected to strengthen into a hurricane, in fact to an 80-mile-per-hour hurricane right around the mid-Atlantic. But the fortunate thing is that the hurricane should stay is expected to stay well offshore, and the computer models and the forecasters are pretty confident of that, since both the GFS and the European are expecting right around the same track, which isn't something you'll see every day, but when you do see it, it means total confidence. So make sure in the East Coast to be prepared for rip currents and winds, and I hope you guys have a great day. So thank you guys for watching.